Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high. Get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Sunday, February 16th, Monday, February 17th for those of you across the pond and beyond. Welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I'm so glad you guys could join us this evening, and I am your host, TessaTNT, and I'm hoping that you guys had an amazing Valentine's Day and a continued Valentine's Day weekend. Thank you again for joining us on one of our mini outlets. You can also find us on Spreaker.com, Periscope, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Tumblr, YouTube, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, Deezer, as well as Podcast Addict. So tonight I have a treat for all my guys and gals out there. Tonight we will be talking to and getting to know Miss Oxana Lovich and Mr. Andrei Knight. So to begin with, Oxana is a certified life coach, hypnotherapist, energy healer, and Reiki master who became interested in self-development at an early age due to tragic events in her own life. These experiences created a burning desire to find the inner peace she was missing and led her to not only traditional methods of education at Berkeley and Sussex, but also immersing herself into the teachings of Native American tribes in order to learn from generations of healers before her. She also holds certificates in Marissa Peer's Rapid Transformation Therapy, the Silva Method, and the Academy of Ancient Magic. She is also a priestess in the Temple of Isis and the Sisterhood of the Rose lineage. Andrei Knight began his meditation training over 2 decades ago, studying under martial arts legend Stephen K. Hayes, as well as his teacher, Dr. Misaki Hatsumi, in Japan. While training with Hayes, he served the Dalai Lama as a protection escort and security advisor, and was initiated into the Diamond and Lotus tradition of Tendai Mikyo, a form of esoteric tantric Buddhism. Bridging the wisdoms of both the East and the West, he holds a PhD in metaphysics and is certified as a professional life coach by Fowler Wainwright International, as well as an NLP therapist. In 2010, Andrei was inducted into the Order of the Hereditary Knights Templars of Britannia, and in 2014, he was invited to join the board of directors of the Declaration of Consciousness Movement and World Yoga Day. So together, Oxana and Andrei lead workshops and retreats both online at exotic destinations all over the world, helping people overcome their subconscious blocks and limiting beliefs in order to realize their full potential, discover their true life's purpose, and achieve their dreams. They work with people from all walks of life, from victims of rape and abuse, returning war veterans, to corporate executives, star athletes, Hollywood celebrities, and even 2 presidential candidates, as well as 3 royal families. So they have a forthcoming book, which is called Abundance, Master Your Energy, Master Your Life, and that's currently available for pre-order through Amazon. For a free video lesson showing you how to shift your state in 67 seconds, visit apexlifemastery.com/paradox. Plus, you'll find more helpful videos at youtube.com/apexlifemystery/ all those other fun things that you'll find behind it. But Andrei and Oxana, welcome so much to the show. I'm so excited to have you guys back.
Oh, thank you, Tessa. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to speak with you again.
So how was your guys' Valentine's Day and Valentine's Day weekend?
Oh, it was absolutely miraculous. I believe that Saint Valentine's Day, it should be celebrated every single day, because I believe that love is something that should be every single moment in your life, because love can heal everything, and love actually the best medicine for you to achieve enlightenment.
And it is true, Valentine's Day should be every day, and everybody's like, what's the big deal on having this day? But, kind of in the world we live in today, you got to set aside some time, and I don't believe in scheduling and stuff, but, I've always liked Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day is seriously my favorite holiday. And you said, like, is it important? Do we have time? You should make the time, because anything you do in life, and I think this is going to be the theme of the show tonight, is done that much better when it's done with love and intention and positive energy behind it.
It's so true, and you should take those little steps every day to show that person that's special to you or yourself how much you love them and how much they really mean to you. But yeah, it is a fun holiday.
And even if you happen to find yourself single on Valentine's Day, spend some time and appreciation every day, not just Valentine's, but loving yourself. The most important relationship we have, and the one we most often overlook, is the one with ourselves.
Yeah, and I think
that's
it's important.
Actually,
go ahead, Oxana.
Yes. So also I want to add that when you master loving yourself, then you often attract the person that you are happy with. And that is why those who don't have somebody yet, they shouldn't feel bad about it. Maybe it's the perfect timing for them to find the connection and the relationships with yourself, so that you attract not just any relationships, but the one that truly fulfill and make you happy and create miracles in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's important to find, like you said, that love within yourself. And my boss, back when I was 21 and a single mom and hadn't dated in a while, and I'm just like, I think I'm attractive. What's wrong with me? Why isn't anyone approaching me? And his name was Lars Bjorkovich, and he was a very wise man, but he told me you have to find that love and that happiness within yourself, because people are attracted to happiness. And I think it's so very important to find that, instead of trying to find happiness through other people or things, that within you is where you'll truly find it. And then, like he said, it's like a magnet and people are attracted to it.
Well, the irony, Tessa, is if you are single, you will finally attract that perfect person. Like we say, when you're ready. Well, what does when you're ready mean? It means when you've already found the wholeness within yourself. That's when you have something to offer another. If you're looking for someone to complete you because you're feeling incomplete, that quest will never end, because you're not going to find that outside of yourself. That's the irony. You have to find it within yourself, and then the perfect person comes into your life, because you're already whole. You're not trying to fill an incompleteness.
Yes, and if you're looking for something to make you happy outwardly, you're always going to be disappointed. So better to find it within you. So I did read your guys' bio, but Oxana, can you tell our listeners a bit more about you and the things you've learned that have brought you to this point in your life?
Yes, I was always interested in self-development, because I had lots of traumas from the past, deep limiting subconscious beliefs that I was working to eliminate for many years. And what I found and discovered is that we are definitely the creators of our destiny. And if somebody doesn't believe in it, it's actually an ignorance. The faster we awaken to the knowledge that every single thing that is happening in our world is our responsibility, the faster we can create the life of our dreams. And I've observed so many different people all around the world, and I literally see how it works. Those who expect miracles have miracles. Those who are open to receive love and blessings have love and blessings. Those who believe that they don't deserve it actually don't have it. And what I've noticed too, since I studied psychology, that sometimes psychology can be a great subject to study, but it's a lot of theory, and that's why people often get misled. I've noticed that one simple thing that we need to change is literally the relationship with yourself. It's about what you think you can have, what you think you are, and what you can bring into this world. As soon as you change those three things, you change your reality. You change your personality, and then you change your personal reality.
Mm-hmm. Literally, the world around you begins to change. What people call good luck, good circumstances happening to them, meeting just the right people at the right time. This is all a reflection of what's going on inside in your inner world. We actually talked quite a bit about this the last time we were on your show. And for those that are interested, it was the December 22nd episode right before Christmas. But it's so true. What separates, I've studied this for a long time as well, what separates a lucky person from an unlucky person, if you really delve deep and start talking to them and start asking the right questions, it's the inner world. It's the dialogue going on the inside, which shapes their perception of the outside world. And all the outside world does is fulfill your expectations. It reflects back to you what's already happening on the inside. So all change truly begins from within.
And change is the only thing, to me, that ever stays the same. Things are constantly changing, and people are changing. So, Andrei, you have an amazing background as well, working with the Dalai Lama. That's amazing to me, like, to have that experience. What made you go down the path that you did, and are you happy with the decisions you made?
It was truly an amazing experience, and here this goes right along with what we've been saying. It fell into my lap. I wasn't lucky enough to get hired by the Dalai Lama. It was my teacher. My teacher just happened to be in a position to bring along a few of his students on the detail. So being in the right place at the right time. What started me on that path, I didn't even know really that I was interested in Buddhism at the time, and nor can I really call myself a Buddhist now. It was a step at the right time. But I set out looking for the Jedi. That was really my thing. I saw Star Wars as a kid. I felt there had to be more to it than just fiction. And I've spent my whole life trying to find and learn from the real-life Jedi. So my quest began with martial arts. And that's what led me to some of the spiritual traditions of the East. And yeah, after you spend a few days following the Dalai Lama around, believe me, I was much more interested in the spiritual aspects than I was like the fighting and all the macho aspects by that point. So it was the right thing at the right time. And the other part of your question, would I do anything differently? Absolutely not. And here's the funny thing. There were times where I felt like I was being pulled along randomly. There were times where I felt like I was being pulled in the opposite direction, what we would call a setback, or I viewed it at the time as a distraction, a delay. But yet all of the steps work together to lead me to where I am now, doing what I'm doing now, and I wouldn't change a thing of it. If destiny, if you will, I'm doing exactly what I feel I was put on this earth to do, and I wouldn't change places with anyone, but I wouldn't have gotten here if it wasn't for all the steps, including the ones I thought at the time were setbacks or distractions. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, I believe that everything happens for a reason. Instead of thinking of certain things as mistakes, they're actually learning experiences, and it brings us to who we are today. And like you said, you have the good and the bad, but to change that would put you on a totally different path.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Exactly.
And it's also your decision. When people tell me, well, mistakes happen for a reason, right? I also believe that it's a good thing to say, but also at one point you should realize you made one mistake, that's okay. But the next time you should also learn not to repeat the same mistakes. Because I've also met people who constantly make mistakes and wrong choices. I believe that even the wrong choices is a decision that you make. Because sometimes making a decision into something that is good for you may be uncomfortable. But guess what? I believe that sometimes the progress and good things are stepping into the uncomfortable, sometimes saying no to yourself to certain things, or eliminating certain things that may really feel like nice things in your life. So I believe that it's your responsibility to make the right choices and eliminate mistakes. Certain mistakes, of course, they are there to serve, but don't think that you should have mistakes to awaken and to have an enlightenment, enlightenment. It's your choice how to get it. You can also get it through no mistakes path.
Yeah, and like you said, it's important to learn from it. Therefore, it's a lesson and not a mistake. And quit repeating that, act like your mama raised you right. But tonight we are giving our listeners a little taste of Tantra. And I'm very excited because I'm kind of ignorant to the whole process. The only thing I know about it is Sting practices it. And like I said, it's quite the process. Where exactly did Tantra begin?
For us, or in general as a practice?
In general as a practice, where does it come from? Where is it derived from? And where are its roots?
Traditionally, if you look up Tantra, it'll mention that it comes from India around the same time as yoga was being born, and a lot of these more energy-based practices. However, in my own research, and you pronounced it really well, by the way, Tandai Mikyo Buddhism, the way it differentiates from other forms of Buddhism, I didn't know this till I looked up what Wikipedia had to say about it years later. They didn't even have Wikipedia when I started practicing it. But Wikipedia defines it as an esoteric tantric form of Buddhism. That's the Tandai Mikyo. It's esoteric and it's tantric. And I didn't know that at the time. So there's evidence of it coming also from the East. And Oxana and I, when we started comparing notes, what she learned in her order, the Sisterhood of the Rose, and what I learned studying with the Templars, both traditions point back, and they have intertwined roots, it turns out. They point back to Egypt. And a lot of their teachings are exactly tantric in nature. So where does it originate? Kind of all those places. Which came first? It's hard to tell. It seems to have sprung up more or less simultaneously. I mean, Egypt is the older of the three cultures, but we don't know at what point of the Egyptian timeline it really appeared. But it's the study of your own energy. Here in the West, if you say Tantra, immediately the word sex comes to mind. Everybody associates it with being a sexual practice. It is actually an energetic practice. It's the study of how to feel your own energy more and how to move it around. You can see where it would have connections to sexuality. But to say that it's only a sexual practice, I would say would be limiting it to about 3% of everything it encompasses and can help you with.
So before I get into how you guys began practicing it, I'm just dying to know, how did you guys meet? And when you met, did you feel like you had already known each other?
Oksana, I'll let you take that one.
Yes. So, yes, absolutely. I literally, we actually kind of prefer not to share our personal information, but I definitely felt like when I met Andrei that we've met before, and our first conversation was actually about our goals for the future, and we were so impressed how we had exactly the same goals. It's probably the first person I've ever met who was more interested in shifting the consciousness of the world than in his own life, because he understood that his own life was connected with the consciousness of the world. So I was impressed by our similar thinking. We think and feel similarly, and even though we studied completely different practices, at the same time we know the same things. And also it feels like what Andrei knows, I know in a different way, so kind of we complete the puzzle, two pieces of the same puzzle.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Definitely the past life connection was there. And historically, the Sisterhood of the Rose and the Knights Templars have been intertwined. So it would only make sense. That part of each other's past we really didn't share right away, but when we were comfortable enough with each other to share that, it was kind of like, well, yeah, of course. Like neither of us was surprised, because we had already seen so many common memories from the past. The thing is, my theory, like if you remember the Da Vinci Code, when they talk about the Templar Knights, they talk about how it's all about tracing bloodlines throughout history and through generation. That's one of the main things the Templars occupy themselves with. Well, I believe there's a reason for that, because some of these skills might take more than a lifetime to master, or at least back then it took more than a lifetime to master. I believe energy is speeding up, and all of us, the rate at which we make progress is speeding up as well. But it would make sense that they're fascinated with bloodlines, because some of these skills take more than a lifetime to master. So, of course, recalling what you did and what you learned in past lives is a big part of the practice. And it's not something you necessarily set out to do. Once you start working with your energy, that information naturally becomes available to you. In other words, it's not something supernatural. It's not something only a handful of people can do. Everybody can learn to do it, but you have to learn the exercises and you have to practice the exercises. But once you start working with this stuff, all of these other doors start opening up naturally for you.
So when it comes to Tantra, did you guys know of it before you had met, or is this something that you guys set forth and learned together?
Tantra, Andrei was studying Tantra all his life. I mean, not all his life, but like he started a long time ago. And I knew about Tantra, but I was never studying it, though I was always connected to my sexuality. And at one point I was actually suppressed because I was too sexual when I was young. And I was rejected by my family because of that, because they felt like I was too much. And that's why I believe that I kind of created a block in me. Plus, I came from Russia, where it's not, at that time, it was not okay to express yourself to the fullest for some women. So I kind of believe that meeting Andrei was the next level into self-discovery, because when he gave me a book, he gave me one of the most amazing books ever. I didn't even read the book yet. I didn't even open it. I already knew who I was again. So I would say meeting Andrei helped me to not learn something new, but awaken to what I already was, to awaken to the knowledge that was in me but was simply sleeping.
Exactly. Like you say, you discovered it later on, but actually you were practicing it your whole life, Oxana. That's why your family and your peers viewed you as too sexual. You had an abundance of an energy. You were practicing Tantra. You just didn't even know there was a name for such a thing. And it was much the same for me when I was growing up. When I first discovered, when my sexuality came online and I started feeling sexual energy coursing through my body, like, okay, little boy growing up, my friends showed me porn. And when they showed me porn, it was almost a letdown. Like, no, that's not it. What I'm feeling inside is like so much grander. There's more to this than just this, what you're showing me on the screen. Like, it was an innate knowing before I even started reading books about it and learning about it formally. So it was, you just didn't, your body, your essence did it naturally. It was just later that you learned there was a word for such a thing. That's what people interpret as being too sexual, quote unquote. It's too much of an energy, and I wouldn't even say too much. It's an abundance of energy flowing through your body is what it is, that people interpret as being sexual or aroused or too sexual. The thing is, ancient cultures knew that this energy can be harnessed and it can be used for healing of yourself and others, for accelerating your spiritual journey, for tapping into that infinite wellspring of knowledge that we all have access to. Even geniuses like Tesla. Tesla said his mind was a receiver. The knowledge didn't come from him. He received it. So all of us can tap into this. Tantra is just the fastest way for getting there. But yeah, how Oksana and I met was literally we were both speaking at a expo at a conference, and she saw what I was speaking about, and she said, well, I have some blocks, and maybe you're the right person to help me with this. And I said, here, read this book. But that's just it. It was already within you, and that's part of what I have a gift for sensing. Like you thought you needed help in this area, you just needed the door opened. You have actually been the reason you're so powerful is you have been doing this for several lifetimes. It was just the one little piece that was missing to connect the dots, and now you've got access to lifetimes of experience. For my part, I didn't have to do very much. This is a multi-lifetime tantric goddess and high priestess, so she had the power there.
Yeah, and it is sad how, our world today makes, nudity dirty or sex a dirty thing when it's really all natural, And my kids will get freaked out because I like to sleep without pajamas. Ooh, Mom, that's weird. Well, we're all born this way, so what's so weird about it? It's just kind of the way that our world has kind of warped our vision of who we really are and what we are.
But it's also because the way nudity, the way sexuality is shown, it's a very distorted way. For example, there is such a difference when a woman is connected to her sexuality, connected to her goddess self, and when she's has her nude photo or photo in a swimming suit, her connecting with her inner power, it's completely different than what we see right now on Instagram, girls just showing their bodies without understanding the energy. It's just so different. That's why I would say the world is not yet fully understanding the difference, whether it's beauty and divinity and whether it's beauty in that, undivine, slutty self, because every woman is divine. It's just not every woman is awakened to that consciousness to portray herself that way and to feel that. Because when she connects to herself, oh wow, she's going to be so beautiful no matter what appearance she has. Because the power and beauty is never outside, it's inside.
It's so true. And it's strange, even in schools. So I was having a discussion with my teenager daughter and niece the other day about dress code. For girls, you can't wear spaghetti straps, you can't be showing your shoulders, but they allow the boys to run around with these tops on that are, showing their shoulders and their arm muscles. Why is it different for the guys than it is the girls? And, also when somebody does begin their sexuality, when a male does it, it's looked upon highly. When a female does it, you're a slut or a whore. It's thought of as less kindly than a guy, It's really weird, these different realms that we are in today.
Well, that's exactly it. Sexuality is so repressed, and it's like we grow up being repressed, and then we inadvertently pass it down to our children. I have specific examples for both of what you brought up. One, I saw a post on Facebook, and I just felt compelled to write in. And it was strangers. I don't even remember why it showed up in my feed, but it was this girl. She wasn't wearing a bra. She was either 14 or 15, but around that age, late junior high or early high school. And she wasn't wearing a bra. Her nipples showed through her sweatshirt. She got sent to the principal's office and then sent home. And people were debating whether it was right to send her home or not for being too sexual. And I couldn't help but comment. Even though these were strangers, I'm like, why is the word sexual even entering the conversation? That's the real problem. A 14, 15-year-old, her nipples are showing while she's in school. The focus should be on keeping her in class so she could learn, not on her nipples, and certainly not sexualizing them. If you're deciding whether she's being too sexual or not, you've already crossed that line because you're thinking it's sexual. I'm thinking a 14-year-old girl sitting in class minding her own business trying to learn. You see what I mean? Why does sexual have to be connected to nipples? That already shows our programming. You see, we have this knee-jerk reaction, and it's pure programming. And then, and therein lies the problem. You know, like you said, you're wearing your pajamas, and your kids go, "Oh, that's weird." There shouldn't be the weird in the first place. It's the human body in its natural form. Let's start where that weird is attached to, and let's look at why we have that judgment. You know, why is it bringing it up in the first place? If you're triggered, if you're having that judgment, I think people, and this is why I'm glad we're doing this tonight, people just need to have open conversations without judgment, without shame. And the more we have open conversations, the more maybe we can start to get to the heart of where are these triggers coming from. For some, it might be parents. For some, it might be religion, you know, but let's ask, where is it coming from, and is it founded or not? That's how I think some of this change starts to happen.
Well, and I like the word that you used, programming, because that's exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's the programming, because truly when children are born, some parents don't even allow to use names for their pussy or vagina. They think that there is something wrong with that word, and they create names for it. So children from an early childhood, they start feeling ashamed about their organs, even though there is no difference between your face and your hair and your vagina. It's as sacred as any part of you. And then people also start shaming you about having sex. For example, we would not be discussing it in public. I mean, you shouldn't discuss it in public anyway, because it's an intimate subject. Like, you shouldn't tell everybody what you don't want to say. But if you would like to discuss, there is nothing wrong with this. But as soon as people start talking about sex or their sexual organs, they start feeling shame. And why is it? It's because of a programming of our population. Because we are definitely programmed. Because when we are born, we don't have that shame. We're actually very free, and we even ask questions all about our sexual organs. We ask freely. But it's our parents, unfortunately, instill us those programs, because they're also victims of victims, because they probably had the same programming from their parents.
And that's exactly what happens. Yeah, we, instead of calling things by their name, we say down there. Like that body part is bad, like there's something dirty surrounding it, like we can't even mention its name. So, okay, so that's bad, that's down there. And then as you start getting older, you start feeling certain tingling, certain energies starting down there, right? So you associate that feeling with something to be ashamed of. And it creates this whole duality that, I mean, it affects our self-image, our self-confidence, everything, like through the rest of our lives, really. It's like anytime you feel empowered in any way, you automatically attach shame to it. The meek shall inherit the earth, right? It's like feeling any sort of greatness about yourself is a bad thing. And this is really kind of how it starts. And we even attach the word sin to it. When really, if you look at the origin of the word sin, it comes to us from archery. Sin means to miss the target. You can hit the bullseye, you can hit to the side of the bullseye, but still on the target, or you can sin, which means your arrow flies to the side. That's what sin means. It means to miss the mark, to settle for less than your true potential, but somehow it became associated with feeling your power. You mentioned Sting practices Tantra. Okay, has anybody noticed that Sting looks damn good for his age? That he's accomplished a lot of things beyond just music. He's a scholar, he's an artist, he's a mathematician. I forget everything he's into, but the man is equally a genius in like 4 or 5 areas, not just one. Maybe there's a connection, because he's devoted years to understanding, harnessing, and playing with his personal power. And it's absolutely connected to your sexuality. The difference with Tantra is it doesn't stop with your sexuality. It's a good place to begin, but you don't just end there. And That's to give you an example of the connection. Like people say, well, I'm not sure if I buy into all of this new age stuff. I'm not sure if I believe in energy. I'd like to. I'll always say, have you ever been sexually aroused? Have you experienced what arousal feels like? Guess what? That's energy. So you felt energy. You can agree that it's nothing paranormal. It's part of nature. Now we can go from there.
And it's funny, like you were saying with religion or your parents' teachings due to what they were taught, how that forms us as well. I, as a child, sought out religion, so many different ones, trying to find answers. But I find myself going away from the whole organized religion thing and focusing on my spirituality. And, for me, my church is in my kids or in the forest or whatever. But it's...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, finish your thought.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the different things, sins and certain things that they teach us are wrong. A lot of them really shouldn't be. Like, you should not be ashamed of your parts or, having that relationship with yourself, freeing that energy. And, the only thing that I really teach my kids about it is that's something you do in private. You don't do that in public because other people don't want to see it. But you should be free to do that, because I think people that generally have those pent up energies and have no real outlet for it end up doing or making really bad decisions.
Mm-hmm. We get asked a lot, can you study Tantra and still be a Christian and still be a Catholic? I'm intuitively drawn to this, but I don't want to go against my religion. That's the thing. I don't think people are. Oxana can tell you, as a member of the Sisterhood of the Rose, Mary Magdalene was a member of the Sisterhood. What do you think she was practicing with Jesus at the time? If a man is described as being able to perform miracles, where is he drawing the power, the raw fuel to perform those miracles from?
And it just really makes me wonder, like, what's behind it? Why do they make these certain rules for people and, basically making people unhappy,
The priesthood felt the shame. The priesthood that followed later felt the shame and said, no, this can't be right. Let's write a cleaner version of it.
So if a person is interested in getting into Tantra, what are the first steps that they should take forward to get into this practice?
First of all, people should realize that Tantra is the way of living. And I would say that when you are studying Tantra, you start studying meditation and you start realizing that all is one, that you are energy, you consist of energy. And when you learn to master your energy, you master your life. Because some people say, oh, Tantra, now I'm going to have a boyfriend and I'm going to start studying Tantra. I would say it goes far beyond that. It's like when I read Osho book, many of his books, I was like, wow, I don't see that I'm learning so much about sexual energy rather than I'm learning how to master my mind. It means that disconnect from my mind, because interestingly enough, any connection that we have, unless we master our mind and disconnect from it, we will never be fully aligned with another person. Because it's like Osho said, even in relationships, unless you master your mind, there are 4 of you, 2 of you experiencing on a physical level and 2 of you constantly making judgments about how it should be and how it should not be. So unless you master that inner talk and stop allowing it to decide how you feel about the other person, you can never practice Tantra truly, because Tantra is really being aligned with your energy, understanding that you are far greater than this human experience that you're experiencing. You're much bigger than that, and allowing literally with your partner or with any person you come into contact with, have an energetic connection rather than judgmental connection. And then you can experience oneness with another person. And then you may experience the most amazing orgasm, because it's not going to be two people, it's going to be one person, because there will be no more mind.
Well said.
I really do agree that, and it seems to me that when you're with that person and you do become one, it really is more fulfilling than to go out and just be with random people, because you don't have that connection or that oneness.
And that's why it's so important to realize it's not only going to happen through practicing sexual things. It's very important to use the tools that Tantra gives you in the bedroom. But the first thing that you need to realize is how your energy works and how it affects every area of your life. And then go into disattachment from your mind. Because only while disattached from your mind, you can experience energy to its fullest. Because if you're still connected to your mind and you allow everything that it says to affect how you feel, you cannot be fully present. And to achieve that level of oneness, you have to become fully present. And that's why Tantra is a way of living. It's not something you just experience with your loved ones sometimes. It's the way you should be living. You should have an orgasm every second of your life. You should be living in a state of ecstasy.
Yeah. To give you an example, one of my favorite workshops that we teach is about tantric eating. Just having a strawberry in your mouth and spending some time getting to know the texture, the temperature, not just the taste. But even the taste, a lot of times we're so busy chewing and swallowing, we forget to really feel things and taste things. So, if you can become aroused from having a strawberry in your mouth, if you can have an orgasm from how wonderful it feels to hug a tree, now you're getting somewhere. It's not just with a partner, and it's not just in the bedroom or in a sexual context. The word aroused, if you look it up, it's actually really interesting. It says to awaken the senses to the point of perception. And you can look this up. This isn't a tantric text. This is Merriam-Webster, the online dictionary. To awaken the senses to the point of perception. It means all the senses: touch, taste, smell, and also sexual arousal. Just to give you a definition from a yogic standpoint, you know we have the 7 chakras in the body. Chakra means energy center or spinning wheel of light. So what you feel as sexual arousal is one of your chakras coming online. What you feel as orgasm is that chakra vibrating now to its fullest, to the point that the rest of your body starts vibrating along with that frequency. That's 1. You have 7. And plus they work cumulatively. So it's an exponential effect. Just to give you some idea of what Tantra is about, it's about using all 5 of your senses and all 7 of your chakras. And in a way, playing your body, more so playing your energy like an instrument. That's what it's really about. And then when you get to the more advanced levels, well, now you've got 2 instruments. Now you've got an orchestra, you see? Now you've got even more energy and even more dynamics to play with.
So you're talking about steps. Are there certain steps in Tantra?
Oksana, do you want to take that, or should I?
Can you repeat the question, please?
I keep hearing the phrase steps, in Tantra. Are there certain steps that you take to get to higher and higher levels?
I believe that life is about taking constant steps. It's a step forward, and what we actually meant is Tantra is not about just sexual practice. It's about literally going into your energy and realizing that you are energy. Then you learn how to move it. So it's the actual physical practice. When you feel it, you learn how to move that energy. When you learn how to move that energy, you will also realize that you create with the same energy. It's literally physics. Like attracts like, right? So when you learn how to move that energy, you can move the energy that doesn't serve you, and you can fill it with an energy that serves you. And often it can be actually done through sexual practices, because the reason why Tantra is also so powerful, because living in this busy world where there are so many distractions, we literally, I would say 70% of people are never present. Maybe only when they go to sleep and when they're tired, or somewhere in the shower or during massage. However, while you're having an orgasm, every single person is fully present. Every single person, because you cannot possibly have a powerful orgasm and have 150 thoughts in your mind. That's why we all kind of love sex, because it really brings us to where it's very hard to even get with drugs sometimes. And that is the most important time also to move your energy, to cleanse your energy, to remove blocks. It's of course a practice, and it should be taught in a one-on-one or a seminar or workshop where we actually show it in a video. What I mean, it's like where to shift that energy, how to send that energy to a different chakra. You not necessarily have to have an orgasm while teaching that, but what I mean, it's more or less, it's the information for the workshop or the class rather than podcast, but it's a very powerful practice. The next step is to disconnect from your mind, because as we mentioned before, the reason why we cannot connect to our divine self is because we are listening to our mind. We listen to every thought that the mind says. And while doing that, you can never be fully present. In other words, be connected to your energy. And therefore, you cannot achieve that state of oneness. So, of course, there are steps, because there are tantric exercises that you can start practicing. But before you achieve that oneness with life, oneness with your partner, I do believe there are multiple steps, not only 3 steps. And that's why we created 7 steps of full life transformation. Because what we realize too, when you master your sexual energy, for example, but you don't master your intuition, your instrument is still not playing the best music it can play. It's like a guitar, right? If one string is out of tune, the whole instrument is not sounding as beautiful as it could be. That is why I believe everything in life, to achieve the state of enlightenment and peace and gratitude every moment, there are several steps. And when you follow each step after another, you achieve that mastery. And the reason why I've noticed a lot of workshops don't work is because some of the workshops just concentrate on one area or another. Or even in Tantra, they would say, today we're going to teach to do these exercises so you have amazing sex life, right? But they don't teach you a most profound tool. You can never have that oneness unless you master your crown, unless you literally become one with everything in this world and disattach from your mind. It's all very much connected. That's why 7 steps of full life transformation, I think, truly is the fastest way to achieve that state.
Some beginning steps your listeners can take right now to see if this is a path that you're drawn to. Like Oxana said, it's really practicing presence is where it begins. So don't put a single thing in your mouth. We eat 3 meals a day plus who knows how many snacks. Don't put a single thing in your mouth without taking the time to fully taste it and fully know it. When you wake up in the morning, instead of reaching for your phone, which hopefully is in airplane mode as it's laying next to your head, but before reaching for the phone first thing in the morning, before you even open your eyes, just lay and practice presence. Can you see the room around you without even opening your eyes? Can you hear the sounds in your room? Can you determine what's happening in your room just by the sounds? without opening your eyes? Can you determine what's happening in the next room? Can you reach a little further and determine what's happening outside? Practice feeling your senses and stretching them out. Simple exercises like this go a long way. Like Oksana mentioned, there are techniques, there are specific steps you can learn. But before even getting to those, if you practice presence, you will get that much more out of everything else that comes after.
Yes, don't ever forget to take deep breaths. As Edgar Tolle says, you cannot possibly think and breathe, but we are such shallow breathers that we don't even know what a good breath is. Good breath should sound like an ocean. You should be able to hear your breath, and every time you take a breath, just realize that I am here, I am now, and I am much more than my life circumstances. Look at the sky, look at the earth, and realize that I'm part of this magnificent, miraculous creation.
Wow.
And like you said, we breathe too shallow, and a lot of times I'll catch myself not breathing at all and wonder, well, why did I do that? Is it some sort of blockage, or I'm not sure why exactly I do that.
A lot of people do that. When I'm teaching a meditation class, a few times during the class, I'll remind people, keep breathing, because people just stop. It's almost like you tell people to focus and their breath freezes like a deer caught in headlights. When actually, if you keep your breath moving, you reach more intense states of focus and presence. A good exercise to practice as you're breathing, move your awareness through your body, up and down your spine, along with your breath. So follow your breath in through your nose and down your spine as you're inhaling, and see how deep you can take it. Down to the bottom of your stomach. Osho actually says the perfect breath tickles the genitals on its way down. So that's how deep you should be breathing. And then follow it back up as you exhale.
That's an interesting take on that. Well, we do have to go to our first break. And on this break, we will be listening to Tracy Cruz, who is from the Oakland, California area. And she'll be singing this break, Joyful Rain. And she'll also be joined by Lonnie Dotson with Flowers and Candy. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Soul and wash away all the pain. You wash every part. Your love lifts higher than all of the stars in the sky. So high. I may not wish on you to be by my side. You loving me, I feel like flying. You loving me, I feel like crying. Tears of joy fall from the sky to make us smile. life changed. Your love rained all over me. It was blissful, so special, essential. Life poetry, true beauty. We created, we made it. Reality, pure affection with expression. A connection was meant to be. You make me feel so good inside, like therapy for my mind. You make me feel so good inside. It was like flowers and candy, understanding how you're standing really must be love. I'm talking true, I'm talking real, and I felt it in my heart. It was like flowers and candy, understanding how you're standing really must be love. I'm talking true, I'm talking real, and I felt it in my heart and soul. You make me feel so good inside. You make me feel so good inside.
Now what is this that's happening? I don't even know you anymore. Oh, yeah. Changes moving through every day. Yeah. And I don't even know what we're fighting for.
Our bright days turn to sleepless nights. Our loving ways have turned to endless fights, and we can't seem to compromise. We try so hard to make things right. Yesterday, we'll erase all some returns. Can't we turn back love? Hands on side. You are my life.
Now what is really happening? Yeah.
Changes are moving through everything. Changes.
Thanks so much for joining us tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we are joined by Oxana Lovich and Andrei Knight. Welcome back, you guys. Thanks so much for being here and teaching us about Tantra.
Oh, thank you. So happy for this opportunity to share.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
So I'm just sitting here racking my brain. What questions can I ask about Tantra? And I don't even have a clue as to where to start. Do you think when somebody decides to get into Tantra that this person should be aware of their different energy points in their body and have their points cleared?
Absolutely. That's a big part of what the practice of Tantra is, actually. In the beginning, it's discovering your energy blocks, clearing them, and working on ways to amplify your energy. That's exactly what it deals with in the beginning, and a big part of why people should consider getting into Tantra and learning about it is not just, like Oksana said before the break, it's not just about being better in the bedroom. Though believe me, you learn to feel and work with your energy, you're going to be the most incredible lover that your lover and you have ever experienced. So that goes right along with it. But the biggest draw for really getting into Tantra is to heal wounds, is to get over blocks, is to empower yourself in other areas. Without exception, every single one of my clients that I started working with, within 1 to 3 months, saw a huge leap or increase in their careers. Without exception. Because once your energy starts flowing, everything in your life starts flowing too. So yeah, there's the lure of better sex, but really, there's not an area of your life I can think of that Tantra would not enhance.
Did you have anything to add to that, Oksana? Like, how would a person go through clearing their chakras and having that all flowing to where this energy is able to flow freely and you don't have any blockages?
It's a conscious decision again. It's you become what you do on a consistent basis. Some people say, you know what, I'm going to start practicing Tantra and meditation for 10 minutes a day, and then the whole day they live their life from old patterns, so allowing themselves to feel stress, to feel anger, to feel pain, to feel different emotions. I believe that the actual energy cleanse will start, yes, with meditation, but it was also with your conscious choice to transform your life. For example, if you've been negative your whole life, you start with meditation, you realize what is it like to be positive. You've experienced new reality, no mind reality, when you don't feel affected by your thoughts, right? But then when your mind starts saying those thoughts, like start criticizing or judging others or diminishing others or yourself, you say to yourself, that's not me. That's who I was. So it's about meditating. It's about doing cleansing ceremonies, but it's also about the choices you make in everyday living. It's about literally becoming the director and the master of your destiny rather than allowing it to experience in a time of meditation and different rituals and ceremonies, as well as tantric practices. Again, because Tantra is the way of living. It's not something you practice for a few hours a day or for a few minutes a day. It's the state from which you start living your life from.
I can give you a practical example of the choice that Oksana is talking about. A rape victim. And this comes up in tantric circles quite a bit because a lot of people turn to Tantra as a way of healing from those negative experiences. And something so traumatic and so tragic happens. particularly with women, because it's internal. You completely feel violated. It's very easy to associate that feeling of violation and pain with anything having to do with your vagina. So going forward, the moment you think of sex, you feel attracted to someone, you think, well, I have to overcome this trauma in order to relate with this person sexually. I have to get past my trauma. Or you can choose for that not to be your story anymore. Okay? You can instead choose, instead of viewing, then it's like you either overcome the trauma or not, but you still attach the trauma to the feeling. And instead, you could think, okay, I've experienced the painful negative part of this. There's a whole spectrum of positivity to explore as well. This is a positive feeling I'm feeling. It's not a negative feeling to overcome. You see the difference? This is a positive feeling I'm feeling, and I want to explore it further. And it's literally a choice. Nobody can change the past. Nobody can change what happened to you, but you can choose to still let it affect you, to still maintain that connection to it. You see,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that it's as easy as, oh, you just forget about it and you go on with your life. Of course, it's not easy, but it starts with a choice. It absolutely starts with a choice.
Well, yeah, and I've said that
That's what we're
to,
saying.
friends of mine because I've been through abuse as a child and then through rape as an adult.
Okay.
But you choose
Oh.
not to be the victim anymore, and that is most empowering, to be able to move past that and not let that define you, and to choose to have a better life. Because to be a victim, for me, I don't like that role. So I like it best to overcome that and empower myself and not be the victim anymore.
And it's a choice you have to make for yourself. No one can make it for you. When people go to therapy following events like this, the reason the therapy sometimes doesn't succeed is because they're looking for the therapist to do all the healing for them. And it's not at all a passive thing. It really starts with you and with making that choice, which is what can make it so difficult sometimes. That's understandable.
And it's funny how, some women will go one direction and, kind of shut all that sexuality down and not have that really a part of their life. And then other women will go the other direction and be quite promiscuous.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important, I think, to get that counseling, and, there's no shame in asking for help and learning to deal with different things like that. But even when you have somebody in your life die, you get that guilt complex going on. It's not your fault that this happened to you. It's the fault of that person that did it. But somehow you get that guilty complex.
Also, it's also about, I know it's really hard to hear, but we choose our circumstances. For example, I understand that anything happens in my life at this moment point, I am completely responsible. If there are problems in the relationships, I understand that because I'm still working on myself, right? I am fully responsible. But while experiencing certain things in our childhood, I believe that we actually choose those experiences to help us to grow and evolve. Because I lost my parents when I was a very young girl, and at first, of course, I felt like a victim of life. I didn't understand why my parents were taken, right? Why were my parents taken from me? And I actually did many past life regression therapy, and I met my parents during different ceremonies, and they actually assured me that we decided it to be my story. We decided for me to stay by myself since an early age, because I would say right now I am strong, I'm powerful, I'm independent, and I see a lot of people who grew up with their parents, and the parents gave them everything, and they're lacking those skills. Since 16 years old, I was on my feet and I was creating my future. Since that day forward, I never stopped. I was so ambitious. So I believe that rape or any traumatic experiences that happen to us, especially in early years of our life, actually the biggest blessings for us. And those who realize it are the ones who awaken faster and evolve faster, because the traumatic experience in our childhood are the biggest drive for us to awaken, to achieve the state that some people live their whole life and they don't achieve it. Some people, my clients, and they're 60 years old, they ask, "You're so young, and how can you be already where we are not yet?" Because the drive that was in me to eliminate those limiting beliefs and traumatic experiences. So I would say if something happened to you in a childhood, like rape or loss of something, see it as the biggest blessing, because this is what will going to take you so much faster. Edgar Tolle said the same thing. Usually, and most often, people with pain bodies, and he names it as a pain body, and he himself had such a strong pain body that he was very close to suicide, are those who destined to awaken a lot faster, and most often to teach those who are not there yet. So we're actually very blessed.
Well, exactly. That's what I wanted to add. In my experience, people that have overcome some kind of tragedy in their lives, like you, Oksana, those are the people that go on to make the most powerful leaders, teachers, healers. The people who really make an impact, a meaningful impact in the world, are usually people that had to go through a bunch of crap to get there themselves. It molds you. It absolutely molds you and empowers you. We all overcome a hardship of some kind. I don't think anybody has a perfect and easy life. It's we choose which lessons we need to learn to give us the tools that we're going to need later in life.
Mm-hmm.
People talk about free will versus destiny. It's kind of both. It is destiny, but guess who gets to choose the destiny? We forget how much control we have. We pray to external gods for the rain to come because we forget that we have the power to make it rain ourselves. All Native American rain dances are actually about experiencing what it feels like to be rained upon. It's not the dance steps they make. It's not the songs they chant. It's about the feeling they're feeling on the inside of it raining on them. So you see, it seems like they're praying to external gods. They're making the rain themselves.
Well, and Oksana, you actually took the time to learn from different Native American tribes. Do they use, like he was talking about, the rain dance, and I've been to several powwows. I live in the Southwest where we have ancient dwellings and such around, but just being there for these powwows and these different dances they do. Like in the spring, they'll do a bear dance, which is where a lot of people find their mates and such, but it's just very interesting.
I've been to bear dance.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Did you like it?
Yes. Yes, I've been to bear dance. I went to Sundance, and what I've realized that because I've had so many Native American friends, and I've attended maybe 200 sweat lodges, because at one point of my life, I was just like going to Mount Shasta nonstop. I had a friend of mine who had sweat lodge, who was trained with a Native American shaman. And what I learned again, literally, it's about connecting with life as one. Because Native Americans, if you only knew how much they honor the earth, they pray to the earth, and the Sundance ceremony is actually done to save the earth. People believe that due to our own suffering, we are releasing the suffering that we bring to the earth.
By growing crops in it and things like that, they understand that sustaining us taxes the earth, so we have to give back to it on a regular basis. And with our energy, with our sweat, absolutely.
And about bear dance, what I've noticed is bear dance, they actually put a bear skin on a person. There are only chosen people who do that bear dance, and they actually start roaring as a bear. And at first I thought, wow, that's very strange. And they take those people to the sweat lodge, and they say, we're going to awaken the bear within. And after that, I realized that, again, we're all one. In each person, there is everything in him or her. And to achieve the state of enlightenment, we should be more connected to the world we live in, to animals that we live with, to the trees that surround us. It's all alive. It's all in us. It's like the best teacher, she trained me for many, many years. She told me, I am in you, you are in me. Distance means nothing for us. Anytime you need to learn something, go into me and I will give you the answer. What if we're all connected like this to each other and can transform each other in this telepathic way? Animals are suffering at this moment because we are so unawakened. There are
We're
so
disconnected.
many extinct animals. Yeah, there are so many extinct animals. There are so many fish that are dying. Birds are dying. Bees are dying. It's because they're feeling us more than we're feeling them.
Mm-hmm. Tantra is a way of life. It's actually right in line with exactly what the Native Americans practice too. It's about feeling your connection to everything. The word tantra itself actually means practice. Let's start with the definitions. It means practice or technique, but Sanskrit, a lot of these older languages like Sanskrit and Aramaic, they're very mathematical languages, and they're very multi-layered languages in that their parts have meanings too, not just the wholes. So you can break Tantra into its separate parts. And Tan means something, literally it means something woven, but figuratively it's said to mean reality, the fabric of reality. Tra means to transcend or to break free from. So Tantra is techniques you practice to break free or to transcend reality. And what did Jesus teach in the Bible? Heaven is here on earth. So it's not about going somewhere like a form of escapism. It's about experiencing the reality you're in on so many more and deeper layers concurrently. Heaven really is right in front of us when you can have that deep connection with an animal or with a tree or with a waterfall. You truly are in heaven. And that's what Tantra means. It means to experience your world on a completely different level, or on levels, I would say.
Yeah, and when kind of going back to what Oksana was talking about with the bear dance and such, to me, in my mind, when I'm there at a powwow and I'm witnessing, this Native American dance, I see a picture of the earth with the magnetic, poles and the layers just going in and out of itself. And when I see the person out there dancing, just the energy that comes off of them, to me, I'm imagining the same thing in my head. This person dancing with the whole magnetic waves going through them and then through the earth and then back through them again in a circular motion.
You're not
it's pretty
imagining
intense.
it. And that's you're not imagining it. That's exactly how it looks. People dismiss a lot of this stuff as imagination. They think, no, it can't be. It couldn't be that I'm spot on. You're exactly spot on. Your intuition is the truth. We have to just start trusting it more. It is it's known as a toroidal field, is what the shape is called. But you can go on Google right now. You can type in human electromagnetic field and click on images, and it'll show you a toroidal field. And then you can type Earth's electromagnetic field and go to images, and you'll see the same exact thing. It's for a reason. It is the same thing. The reason we're having so many more earthquakes now and hurricanes, and the severity is getting worse. Sure, there's climate change going on, and whether you think it's man-made or not, it's happening. I think it's both, which is why we should be concerned, but it is happening. But in addition to that, there's also the energy and the vibration that we're sending out. And that's contributing so much more than the gases in our atmosphere. The energy we're radiating out, the earth is simply responding back to it. All the war, all the fear, all the chaos, all the scarcity. That's what we got to get under control. We're transmitters. For humanity to undertake the next step in its spiritual evolution, we have to realize and accept that we are transmitters. We are always broadcasting. And it is our responsibility to clean and to consciously choose that frequency that we choose to vibrate out. It is not only our birthright and our power, it is our responsibility. In ancient Vedic times in India, just like this, today we brush our teeth, we take a shower before we go out. And if anybody doesn't do that for a few days, you're going to look at them funny when they walk by. It used to be considered poor hygiene to go outside in public without meditating first. Without cleaning your energy, you don't go out and mingle your energy with others. That used to be the norm in older times when we weren't as distracted.
Well, and it is funny, the world we live in, and you're talking about these crazy energies that we have just like projecting from us. So with Tantra, are you trying to harness that energy and control it instead of just letting it fly freely?
Exactly. It's all about consciousness. Be not just your energy, but the external world too. Once you master your internal energy, and this is why the subtitle of our book is Master Your Energy, Master Your Life. Once you master your internal energy, the outside world kind of falls into line too, and life becomes less about being knocked around by the storm and more about being able to steer the ship. And even more than steer the ship, even feeling what it feels like to have the wind in your sails pushing you, to take that analogy further. The life really shifts from a storm knocking you around to blowing into your sails. You master the inside, you master the outside as well. And that's just it. I love helping people, but really I teach Tantra because I'm out to save the world. And I believe you save the world by helping people because it's the energy we're transmitting that's gotten us to where we're at. That's where the shift starts.
Well, Skywatcher was saying in the chat, he said he's never tried Tantra but had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening last year, and he said that this subject just seems to keep popping up in different groups. Do you think there's a reason for that?
Absolutely. If it keeps popping up for you, any topic, not just Tantra, if that topic keeps popping up for you, pursue it. Never dismiss anything as coincidence. So if something keeps coming in front of you, it's your cue to follow that rabbit hole. This topic in particular, energy awareness, Kundalini, Skywatcher, absolutely. It's all different words for the same thing. It's energy awakening within your body and traveling up your spine from the lower chakras up to the higher chakras. That's what you experienced as a Kundalini awakening is exactly what we're talking about here. And Tantra is simply a set of techniques, and by all means not the only set of techniques, for getting people there. It happens to some people spontaneously. It happens to some people through a trigger. A lot of people say like near-death experiences will trigger their psychic abilities or their extrasensory abilities. We're all talking about the same stuff. It's something that wakes that energy within you up. And it's often symbolized by a serpent, like the medical symbol. The serpent climbing up the staff is symbolic of the same thing. Once that serpent awakens, at the base of your spine, it starts crawling up and up.
And then he said, I believe I had my spontaneous KA because 5 years ago, almost died from acute alcoholic hepatitis and blood loss from a shredded lower stomach or stomatic. 5 weeks in the hospital, He said he dedicated his life to helping others, not getting to the place he was at. And he said he did much meditation and learning secular Buddhism to change his life. Then one day, boom. And then he says, laugh out loud, never heard of Kundalini?
Mm-hmm. Kundalini literally means moving energy up your spine. That's literally what it means.
I've never heard of it till now. Very interesting. So is that to kind of awaken the mind, moving the energy up the spine? Like, what is the purpose in a person doing that?
Okay, it's not so much that the higher chakras are higher, like more important in any way. You know, they're higher if you're standing up, certainly. But if you're laying down, not necessarily. But when we say higher, we mean higher vibration. And for those of us whose consciousness has been primarily focused in the 3D and within our physical bodies the most, it's often easier to start working energetically with the energy of what we are calling the lower chakras, because they're more closely in tune with the frequency of the physical world. Okay? For example, the first chakra deals a lot with, and it's often symbolized by the color red. It deals a lot with physicality, survival, food, shelter, abundance, like financial abundance. Basically, survival issues is the frequency of the first chakra, which, by the way, is located outside our bodies. It's about, for most people, 6 to 12 inches below their tailbone, not where it's drawn often in the pictures. And that's part of, like, you want to talk about sexuality being repressed. The way the charts are drawn has to do a lot with what our society is going through energetically. We associated sexuality a lot with that red chakra, which is physical only, survival. And not so much the energy of the higher orange, which what sexual energy actually is. It's more second chakra than first chakra. The first chakra is outside the body. But it often helps to start working in this area. And this is the 7-step system that Oxana was referring to earlier. It helps to start working in this area. And then you can use that energy to then start dealing with the issues surrounding the frequency of the second energetic area. And then when those two chakras are online, you can raise that energy still further up to the third chakra. So each one kind of builds upon the next to get you to the step after, okay? But it only has to be done in that order for us because we've become so associated with our physical form. There's a lot of people who believe they are their skin, and that's all that they are. So often the first step is to have something like an out-of-body experience or an astral projection experience. So you start to realize there's energy to you, and it's a very real thing. And you're not just this body, you're not just this piece of flesh, okay? And that's very often that first step, that step from the red to the orange. And I think it's no accident that monks wear orange, or that the sexual vibration is the orange vibration, and that's what we're most afraid of and most ashamed of. You see, that first step is often the scariest. And once you can make that move from the red frequency into the orange, then the other ones start to open up, the yellow and the green and so forth. But we've become so associated with the physical, we kind of have to start from that end of the pyramid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so also you have to realize that sexual energy is the energy of creation. You were born through sexual energy, and everything in this world is a creation, right? Even the ability to manifest your dreams, it's a way of creating your dreams. So that's why it's so important to never, ever dismiss your sexual energy and realize that it is actually your power. Or like Osho said, when you work on the first 3 chakras, the other 3 that are higher, you don't need to work anymore. They just come into alignment naturally.
Resonance, harmonic resonance, yeah. Musical instruments display the same properties.
Do you find that being able to attune yourself and clear these chakras or to empower them, that you find that you become more empathic or intuitive. And you were saying earlier about being able to communicate telepathically, and I can actually do that a lot with my husband. I'll know what he wants or what he needs before he even says anything, or I'll say what he's thinking, and he's like, "Hey, get out of my head." Do you think people become, more aware of themselves and then therefore kind of opening up that other realm?
Yes, absolutely. As Andrei mentioned before, like if everybody would be cleansing their energy and their chakras, the energy in the chakras, I don't think there will be any conflicts. I don't think there will be any disagreements, even traffic. It doesn't matter how many people live. The reason why we even have traffic and so many conflicts in the world is because we are unable to live in peace. Because how can we do that if we are not even at peace with ourselves? And the reason for that is that we all kind of empathetic towards each other. That is why Buddha says, unless the whole world awakens, I cannot awaken. Until the whole world has enlightenment, I cannot be enlightened, because we all sending messages telepathically at this moment already. That is why sometimes we wake up in the morning and we say, oh my gosh, I'm not feeling well. I don't know why. Everything in my life is going well, but I just don't feel well, because we feel the whole world. And as we know very well that our world is in this time in a stage of, I wouldn't say we are not searching for it, but we're definitely not fully awakened, because I would say at least 60% of the world are still living in anger and suffering and pain. That is why sometimes we feel those feelings without even understanding why we have those emotions. Telepathically with your loved ones, we're always connected. Truly, have you ever heard this expression like something happened to your child or your husband? Maybe something small, but you feel it in your heart, because truly we're always telepathically connected. And that's exactly why the whole world should achieve peace before you achieve peace fully. Of course, you can master it on your own, but it's just going to be a constant work. When the whole world achieves this feeling, we all become telepathic and literally sending beautiful vibrations of love, peace, serenity. And then you don't even need to do the work anymore. It's going to be your everyday living to be in peace and love and serenity.
And what you were mentioning about being drawn to this topic, more and more people are being drawn to topics like this because our awakening as a species is very much exponential. As more and more people wake up and come online, more and more people will be pulled towards curiosities in these areas and will have an easier time of getting there. When I was teaching meditation, we developed a technique. Well, I'm still teaching meditation, but a few years back, we developed a technique, and we were amazed that within 2 lessons, we were getting someone to the same depth that it used to take a few months to get them to. Now we're doing it in a few minutes on the first lesson. So there's more and more people showing an interest, but also the people that start doing this work are getting there so much faster. There's kids born now with psychic abilities fully awake. We had the indigo children. The new generation is even more powerful. They're called the crystalline children. And here again, historically, Jesus Christ, where does the Christ part come from? It's not a name, it's a title. It means crystalline. It means directly connected to the crystalline consciousness. They didn't know what it was. They called it the cosmic consciousness or the crystalline consciousness, but that's where the title Christos comes from. It means you were able to directly tap in and channel that.
And Sandra's saying in the chat room,
there's kids born with that ability.
Somehow we are all connected, and I believe we are all connected in a certain way, and a lot of times we're meant to be in each other's lives for certain reasons.
Absolutely. We attract people to help us to achieve a new level. That's why I don't believe there are any coincidences. I do believe that you are in full control of your life, and if you have unpleasant coincidences more often than pleasant, then there is something to rethink about the choices you are making. In some cases, though, I do believe that coincidences or negative relationships sometimes are leading you to the right ones, because there are lessons in many different things that we're experiencing in life.
Don't forget, you are the author of your story. So ask yourself, am I learning something from these experiences? Are they aiding my growth? Have I learned their lessons already? Do I need to keep experiencing them? Am I ready to move on? Am I ready to create something grander for myself? We give away our power by not exercising it. We have to remember, as you're breathing, as you're moving your breath up and down your spine, as you're doing some of these exercises, just never forget you are the creator of your experience. Never forget that, and make a choice. Anything that's not serving you anymore is now part of the past. It's not part of your present or your future. You gain your power by exercising it.
It's so true, and I do agree with the whole terminology as far as, your life is your book, and we are our own authors, so make it a good one. You make your own decisions. When my kids say, I'm bored, well, automatically I want to say, well, you're a boring person then, I can find so many ways to entertain myself, and a lot of times I don't even have to work at it because it's just kind of come naturally to me since I was a kid. But for them in this technical or, web era where everything's online and that's where they're finding most of their stimuli, it's important to put that down and, like we said before, get to know yourself and make yourself happy and entertain yourself. Don't depend on different things to do that for you or people, It's up to you.
Internal, not external.
Exactly. So, do you have to be a certain age in order to start this process, or do you think it's a good idea to get our kids trained in enlightening themselves and learning different things about themselves, like you said, internally and then also externally?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Actually, the reason why we have so many problems in this world is because we were not brought up well. Because the child, since he was born until the age of 16, is like a sponge. He or she is completely in subconscious mind, and that's why the child forms beliefs. Imagine if you teach your child to love himself or herself. Imagine you teach a child to meditate. Imagine you teach a child to be present. Imagine you teach a child to become a positive thinker, and literally when you, like, as I mentioned before, it's about balance of non-thinking and thinking, right? But what if you teach your child not to think, and then while thinking, use your mind to create anything you want? This child is going to be a successful child at 16 or 17 or 18. He may have a corporation working for him, because a child is so receptive. If you've noticed, if you ever send your child to do dancing or martial arts, children learn really, really quickly. The adults sometimes take years to learn something that the child can learn in less than a month. And that's why the best athletes, the best dancers are usually the ones that were sent in their early childhood. The same as with your mind, the same as with meditation skills, the same with tantric skills, the same with self-love. If you educate a child, the child will become unstoppable force and will be an example for many others how to live their lives.
And specifically, topics like Tantra, when should you get them started? I would say it's different for everybody. It's when they naturally show an interest. Some people mature earlier, some people mature later. When their bodies signal them, they will start asking questions. As parents, we shouldn't be ashamed or afraid to have conversations. When a question is asked, it should be answered thoroughly. We don't need to tell stories about birds and bees. We should tell people how their bodies work. And I understandably want to keep your child safe. You don't want them to end up pregnant or with a disease at an early age, but you keep them safer, not through a lack of information, but through information. Um, gee, safe sex. Your body is only fertile during certain days of your cycle too. That would be very helpful information to pass on instead of total avoidance. People are thrust into adolescence with a bare minimum understanding of their bodies at best. If I think back to what was and wasn't covered in my teenage sex ed class, we're really thrown into it really naively.
Well, yeah, and like you said,
Yes,
they want
and
to.
I'd rather. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
And I'd rather to give my child the right information, the one that I want my child to use, rather than him or her to learn it from the sources that I don't approve. Because a lot of parents, they try to protect their child so that they don't share that information. But we live in an information age. Your child can go to YouTube channel or to watch a movie with his friends about sexual life, and he may learn the completely different experiences and even create traumas. That's why I believe that every parent should teach and educate their child before he or she is exposed to the wrong information. Because as we know, we live in a world where sexuality is not yet presented in a divine and sacred way.
Well, and a lot of our kids, most of the things they learn are from their peers. And I think, like you were saying, Oksana, it's best to come from you so it's not perverted or whatever may come up. Different people have different stances on things, and to learn from your parents what is truly acceptable and, the true way of things, like you're saying, instead of learning from YouTube or a porno or, like you said, from your friends. Best to come from the parents. So, like you said, don't shelter them or stifle them or try to keep them innocent forever. These things are natural, and, what better relationship to have than an open one with your kids where you can talk about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And if you have an open relationship when it comes to sexuality, think of other topics your kids will feel more comfortable discussing with you. Like, for example, when their friends offer them drugs in school, right? If you make it taboo to bring up difficult conversations, how much more is there that they're not telling you?
So we were talking about phases, and I think throughout history I can recognize different phases of awakening and different phases of stifling. And, back in the 70s, 60s and 70s, there was peace and free love, and, everybody just had this openness, and then it seems like it died out again. Like the government came in, stifled it out, and it's kind of like trying to control us. And there's so many ways they do that, through having to work multiple jobs and not being able to spend that quality time with your family or your loved one. I think we're now in another age of awakening where people are becoming aware of things and aware of their gifts and the things that are really out there. And we're trying to get out there again, but, the man's kind of keeping us down with these jobs and having to jump through these hoops just to survive. It's pretty interesting to watch and see, but with our younger generation, it's important to, instead of closing those doors, open them to them, and that way they can make our world better, hopefully. I mean, something's got to give.
I hope that we're at the start of a new wave. I really do, because the last statistic I read, there was an article actually about this very thing in Psychology Today, and they were saying that millennials are dating less and having less sex than any generation since the 50s, which were a very repressed generation. But these things always go in cycles. We had the Roaring 20s, right? Then we had prohibitionism, and it led decade to decade into, the very conservative 50s. Then, as you mentioned, we had the sexual revolution of the late 60s. I think it did kind of almost like religion has suppressed sexuality for so long, and then it started to come out of Pandora's box. It's almost like in the 70s they said, okay, you want it? Here, have it. And then they gave us the porn movement of the 70s and 80s, which in many ways was as effective as the repression, because now we were just focused on the physicality of it. Here again, that first chakra energy, and not at all getting into any of the higher chakras or the higher energies, because it's not supposed to be just about flesh rubbing together. Okay, that feels nice, but once you have the feeling, then you play with amplifying that feeling and lifting each other up even higher. So it's almost like that free sexuality. In some ways it was good and it was a liberation, but in some ways it kept us at a certain level. And maybe that's why we had to pull back and try again, because these things come in waves, just like the tides. And maybe now we're ready, due to some of the popularity of yoga, the popularity of meditation, maybe now we're ready to appreciate the more energetic aspects of it if the next wave comes through. And I believe it's starting to. I believe that's exactly what we're feeling.
So Skywatcher again in the chat room, 2 ways of having I want to say Ka, but is it Ka? It's like a capital K. Ka? I'm not sure.
Ka, yeah.
Okay, so 2 ways of having a Ka. One way is to spend years learning yoga, like you were just talking about. Both very difficult exercise and lots of learning. Normally, then K uncoils up your spine, opening chakras one at a time. Could take days, months, years for complete awakening. The other way is to be totally unaware, then have something very bad happen to you, like almost dying, or as Oxana was talking about, rape, and then you have a spontaneous Ka, which happens within seconds or minutes, and all chakras open at once. It is physically explosive and charged and scary, he says, but some people go insane. Do you think people have to have a certain mental health before they try to get into these awakenings?
Everyone has a different journey. I don't believe that each person's journey is the same. So I would definitely not wait for anything to happen to start experiencing different practices that can take you to the next level. I would say that today, no matter what is happening in your life, realize that we may live multiple lifetimes, but in this lifetime we live once. How you would like to live your life? What would you want to see in your life in 10 years? And realize that your life in 10 years, it's the decision you make today. Transform or still live life from a state of ignorance.
The question was mental health. Does it help to be sound when you start? Some people start on this path because they're looking to become more sound. Some people are what others would call insane because they're there already. Oksana's right that it's very much an individual journey for everybody. My journey's not going to look like your journey. The right time to start is when you feel pulled. Does it help to start from a more sound foundation? I think what really helps is having a guide on the journey. In today's culture, it's trendy now to knock the guru, right? We are all our own internal gurus, our own internal teachers, and you can absolutely get there on your own. One of the things I'm always saying is this stuff is not supernatural. It's perfectly natural. Everybody has these abilities. So yes, you can absolutely get there on your own. But you can get there so much faster and with so much less trial and error and with so much less traumatic, unexpected events along the way if you do it alongside someone who's been there and done it and knows what you're going through and can guide your journey. You can definitely get there faster and safer and less with trauma. So a solid foundation, certainly, but I think more important is having a teacher or a mentor or a book, something to guide you. It's important to listen and follow your intuition, and you have within you everything you need. But having a guide can certainly make it faster for you. There's no question about that. That's the most important.
Well, on that note, we do have to go to our second musical break. And on this break, we have Tracy Cruz, which is an independent artist from Oakland, California, with Electricity and Emotional Love. And then we have Prime Example. One of our friends from the chat room, Quest, is a part of this band. And he is from the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. So you guys, hang in there. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Thank you so much.
Your love empowers me. It gives me the energy to move beyond my capabilities. There is no limit to what your love can do.
I feel chemistry whenever you're close to me, and I cannot explain your energy, 'cause you're pulling me like gravity. It feels so strong.
microphone. I receive what you say to me.
I will never find someone else like you. You make me feel so good in your love, like some my heart, like electricity.
Our love is the
Boy, I don't know what to do. My heart is so confused. In the past, it's been put down, it's been shattered, and then I'm left without any clue to know the real truth about what I found. But with you, I found my common ground. Your love makes me emotional, 'cause you're the one that makes me feel emotional. You make me feel that love is real, 'cause you're the one that makes me feel emotional. Ever since I was young, my mom said love makes you strong when everything goes wrong and you can't go on. I believe the love you have for me surpassed infinity. That's why you're all I see. Your love makes me emotional, 'cause you're the one that makes me feel emotional. So emotional. Love is real, 'cause you're the one that makes me feel. Your love makes me emotional. Your love, 'cause you're the one that makes me feel emotional. So emotional. Love is real, 'cause you're the one that makes me feel emotional. What you have is magical. We feel so emotional, emotional. You move me so I can't let go, I can't let go. You touch my soul, I can't let go, I can't let go. 'Cause what we have is magical. Your love's emotional. Your love makes me emotional. You're the one that makes me feel emotional. Can't you see you do something to me? Oh, I can't let go. You make me feel. Your love's emotional. So emotional. So emotional. It feels so real to me. It feels so real to me. It feels so real to me. You're the one that makes me feel. It feels so real, yeah, yeah. Love is makes me feel, yeah. Emotional, emotional, emotional.
When you smile, I see the life in your eyes. I hear the rhythm of you, creating moments we chill to. Wrapped in the waves of emotion, it's imperative. to your mind. It's not the feel of your thighs on my back when I'm deep in consummation with you in the room. It's not the scent of your breath in my face when we touch and share the rhythm of a loving embrace. Yeah. It's your smile that lets me know I'm on point, that I have written the word in this joint, and it's you. Pretty brown eyes and confidence, you're my ministry, and girl, I'm feeling it. Come on, so smile for me and don't let my hand go, girl. I just want you to know when I'm holding you, sending my love to you in verse 2 with a kiss and a beat that you and I can step to. Come on, God created the heavens and the earth. What he saved is very best for the day of your birth. No longer is it just me, myself, and I. But since you have arrived, you're the apple of my eye, girl. Open your heart and let me come inside. All this love is forever for the ride. And when that DJ played our favorite song, we dance the night away until we're heading home where we're holding you.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for tuning in tonight to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. And this Valentine's Day weekend evening, we are talking about Tantra. And our guests tonight, who are graciously teaching us about this lifestyle, we have Oxana Lovich and we have Andrei Knight. You guys, welcome back, and thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to mention where we left off on Ka. He was saying Kundalini awakening. I think he was just abbreviating it. But what's interesting is Ka actually means fire. Literally in Japanese it means fire, but figuratively it's the same like Ki or Chi or all prana. All these different words we have for this internal energy that we've been talking about. Ka is actually one of those words. Exactly refers to that.
Yeah, and I was saying in the chat, man, I got to Google this. And, you know, there's so many different things that I'm being awakened to this evening that, you know, like you were saying, generally we have a certain perspective of Tantra and everybody thinks of it as, you know, sexuality, when that is a part of it, but a lot of it has to do with the energy of our bodies and what we have within us.
Right. Sexuality is a great way to get that energy flowing, get the process started. But that's just it. That's why I was saying before the break how the liberation of the 60s, because the intent wasn't there, it was just the physicality, we kind of got stuck there, and we got the porn movement of the 70s and 80s. Like, sexuality is a great way to get the process started, but it doesn't stop there. It doesn't end there. It's just the beginning. It's the gateway. It's the entry into this whole world. It's actually very interesting. The Sanskrit word for vagina is yoni. Sanskrit is an ancient language, and it comes from the same region of the world that Tantra is thought to have originated from. But their word is yoni, which literally means sacred gateway. Some translate it as sacred gateway to the temple, some as sacred gateway to the cosmos, and some say, what's the difference? It's one and the same. The temple is the cosmos, but everybody agrees it's the gateway, it's the doorway, it's how it's how we experience this thing we call energy. Very often it's our first experience with it. I know it was mine when I was growing up.
Oksana, did you have anything to add to that?
I do believe that Andrei is right, and I do believe that when men realize that yoni, it's not just something that they could use for physical pleasures, but rather to a way to awaken, become more powerful, to take that sacred juice of it's Mary Magdalene. Do you know that her name is means keeper of the sacred water? And when they were together with Jesus Christ, it is believed that he was practicing Tantra with her, and we don't know exactly for sure, but the knowledge he was giving to the world may have happened because through the union of these two powerful beings. It's not that man is not powerful, but the man who understands that the woman is way more than just a woman. There is so much he can tap in. The same as with a woman when she understands what energetically her man can give to her and how he can transform her, can achieve an enormous success. And I don't mean success in material positions. I mean success in the mastery of every area of their life, as much as success and abundance and enlightenment and intuition and their sexuality and connection to the all.
We know this for several reasons. The Temple of Isis records a girl very much like Mary Magdalene through her time studying there and healing there and as a high priestess there. So there are some allusions to this. There's also temples throughout Tibet and India that record a prophet named Isa studying and teaching there. But beyond that, there's two books of the Bible in particular that I think of that weren't part of the Bible as published by King James, but they turned up in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and those two are the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. One is actually her gospel. People forget that she was one of the disciples. And then Thomas specifically, the Gospel of Thomas is his notes as he's sitting in class. So he's literally transcribing some of the sermons of Jesus. And the exercises that are mentioned in both of these books, and this could be part of the reason they were left out of the Bible, they resemble a lot of what's taught and practiced today in Tantra. It's these same kind of breathing exercises and visualizations, moving energy up and down your spine, push and pull in and out of the palms of your hands. It's exactly the same stuff. They're describing the same kinds of exercises.
Yes, and also if we go back into the past, we all know about powerful women. And interestingly enough, some don't even know the secret. And I've studied very powerful women. One of them was Cleopatra. And the first thing that they actually showed is her studying tantric. She was practicing Tantra. They wouldn't say it was Tantra, but the way we saw, like what we saw that she was doing, it's exactly Tantra in the modern world.
Absolutely. Well, the Bible records Mary Magdalene as a prostitute. And it's actually not the Bible. Let me correct myself there, because a good friend of mine, David Young, actually wrote a book on Mary Magdalene. And he did, while he was working on the book, he did research, and he went to 6 different Bible scholars. And he said, what's the passage in the Bible that names her a prostitute? And nobody could come up with the chapter name or the number. 6 different scholars. So it's actually not even in the Bible. It's something the priesthood have started teaching by default because somebody taught it to them that way, and they repeat it. But it's actually not in the Bible. But
and I think
the
a lot
common
of
understanding
things have been taken from the Bible, because they don't want us to be educated on certain things. And it seems like a lot of times they'll take out the women in so many different aspects of our history, whether it be biblical or whatnot. So I'm excited. I'm not Catholic, but I know the Catholic Church is going to retranscribe the Bible, and I'm hoping that everything will be in there. You know, I know there's been things added and omitted, and I just know that through reading it and interpretation for me. But I'm hoping that they'll actually put out the truer version. And like you said, there's different scripts out there and different scrolls that are found that are all a part of it as well. So many times they've tried to take our history from us and burn these records because they don't want us to be educated on certain things. But I think it's so important that we do educate ourselves.
Or distorted, or the history has been completely distorted. So that I say that, or our history was completely distorted, so we are misguided. And that's why religion can often be why life coaches exist.
The old thinking came from fear and scarcity. So it was, this knowledge is very dangerous, and if people knew what they were really capable of, they would destroy the whole world. So we have to keep this knowledge only for a privileged few. And then it became a class thing. Well, we have to hang on to this knowledge because if we empower everyone, we lose power. You know? And I really like to believe, I like to give it the benefit of the doubt that things are changing now, and people are realizing that the way we save the planet, the way we take the next step along our evolution of consciousness and our destiny is by sharing this knowledge and empowering as many as possible. Because it's, you know, you look in the way the human brain develops, or cells within a fetus develop, or even stars and galaxies develop. Like first you have individual things forming, but then it becomes about the connections, the networks between those things. You know, brain cells, you start growing more and more brain cells. Eventually the rate of new cells slows down, and as a fetus is developing, you're forming connections between the cells. Same thing can be said about the cells of the body as the baby itself develops. Same can be said as us developing the internet now. And I think that's a trend that only continues, that, you know, first you had these enlightened masters, but now it's really about everybody coming online and the network that we set up as we awaken collectively as a species. That's really the next step.
Yeah, and you see so many times in our life, whether it's politics or religion, government or whatnot, there's so many different barriers put before us to keep us from growing to our full potential. And so it's awesome that we're discussing this and, you know, trying to grasp that awakening so then we can empower ourselves, work together, and grow to something greater, what our full potential is. And like I said before, even our diet in the United States is outlawed in so many countries, and I think they're feeding us these things, whether it's knowledge or, you know, what's on television or the computers and our food, to keep us lower level and, like you said, to control us.
Oh, they absolutely are. It's a well-documented fact that the fluoride found in our drinking water calcifies the pineal gland. The pineal gland is the third eye. It is the seat of this higher knowing, this higher perception and awareness, and we're deliberately calcifying it. A lot of the food, corn syrup has been shown to reduce fertility rates. A lot of the pesticides directly interfere with the body's metabolism of testosterone. They're making the men more feminine. The opposite side of it, birth control pills, they're taking the femininity right out of women. A lot of women just take it for granted. They assume that birth control pills work by tricking your body into believing that it's pregnant. It manipulates the hormones. It makes you think you're pregnant, so you can't get pregnant. False. It tricks your body into believing it's going through menopause.
Well, that's just great.
Right? And they're using it not just for birth control. They're giving it to 15-year-old girls, saying this will regulate your cycle. This will control your acne. And sure, it'll do that at the cost of shutting down your feminine energy. So absolutely, it's, you know, repressing sexuality isn't just in society's shame about discussing it. It's very much chemical. It's very much 5G, I think, is going to totally interfere with people's reproductive cycles. That frequency of the body, we already know the frequency of our music. 440 versus 432 tuning. Every time you turn on the radio or turn on the television, you're exposed to music, the frequencies of which scramble your nervous system a little bit and certainly disconnect you or make it harder to connect to anything spiritual.
However, I have to add something. The fact that we have so many negative consequences in this at this time, it's because we are negative. In a way, I understand the government does this does for us this, but it's because we ourselves are the reflection. What's going on in our world is the reflection of the state in which humanity exists.
There are challenges, exactly. There are challenges.
I would never concentrate on the cause, because surely if people will start going around and sharing this message that there is lack of this, the food is bad, the fluoride in the water, it's actually intensifying and spreading that message and making it even more powerful. Just the same way when people hate the president, they talk about that president and that president becomes a president. I would shift this to a different way. Yes, there are birth control, but there are not many women exposed to it. If you choose, if you make the right choice, you don't use birth control. Like I use birth control, it didn't affect me to that degree because it's still your conscious decision whether you allow it to be in your life or whether you, because the less you use those things that are negative for you and provided, the less things will be created as well.
You touched on two main points there. Absolutely. Don't forget you have the power to transmute. It's better to eat a better diet than to go to fast food. Absolutely. But if you're in a position where it's fast food or starve, well, my meditation teacher used to say she'd rather starve, but she would skip a meal, or 2 or 3 if need be, rather than eat. But let's say you absolutely have to, realize you can transmute it. You don't have to say, oh, this is so bad for me, my body's going to hate me as you eat it. You can still fill it with love and light and say, this is going to nourish me, and in this moment I need nourishment. So you can certainly amplify or minimize an effect. That's what alchemy is. Alchemy is the art of transformation. It had nothing to do with base metals. People took it too literally when they talked about turning lead into gold. You're the lead that you're turning into gold, and gold is the light of everyone's aura when fully activated. Okay? You see it, the halos that they draw on top of saints, or the glows in Buddhism that they draw around their enlightened beings. Yeah, the golden light. Everybody's going through that transmutation, so you can certainly transmute the foods and the waters you ingest, the music, the sounds you ingest. And then the other part of it is, yeah, we can say the government's holding us back, religion's holding us back. Who is the government? Who is religion? It's people. We created institutions such as church and such as government for a reason, because we're afraid to take responsibility for our own evolution. You know who's really holding back our spiritual evolution? It's us, because we're afraid of it. We're afraid of ourselves and what we can do. If we're not afraid of it anymore, we will do away with all the things that stand between us and them. We won't need them anymore. So it very much is about our evolution and us being ready for it too.
It's like I know a person, a very good friend of mine, who always makes money. And interestingly enough, when we talk about crisis, he said, I don't believe crisis exists. I've made the most money when people suffer the most. That's what it means, what you set your mind to. You can live in the worst possible political situation, but it's what you decide to be. And remember, the more you decide to not be where everybody else is, the more you help others to be also on your level. And that's when we stop putting attention and stop concentrating on negativity. And that's when it's going to disappear on its own.
There are good people within the government too who are looking for ways to improve and protect their country. I've been approached by CIA agents twice in my life. Once they wanted to recruit me. Once she picked up on my psychic signals and really wanted to see if she could hear what I was thinking and back and forth and to do a test. But neither time was I threatened with my life. They said, ooh, you're teaching the world spiritual stuff. We're going to take you out because our goal is to keep the world in darkness. No, their goal is not to keep the world in darkness. They tried to recruit me for the remote viewer program because they're trying to keep the world safe. A ultimately, when the spiritual awakening comes, members of the church and members of the government are going to come right along with us. They're not the enemy. You know, Christianity has its roots in the practice of circulating energy through your body. You know, to truly be a Christian is, and this is Jesus' own words, it's John 12:14. It's not to worship him, it's to become like him. Be like me. Even greater miracles than I are you destined to perform. Be like me. So if you know, none of this is anti-religious. If you want to be a true Christian, then practice what he taught.
Mm-hmm.
Become what he was.
It's interesting, too, the different practices that there are. At a certain point in my life, I was baptized into the LDS Mormon church, and they practiced the laying on of hands for healing. And, you know, I would notice it was amazing. You feel the heat at first and then just the energy flowing through your body. And it kind of goes with Tantra, where you're sharing those energies and using your energies to heal each other and awaken each other and whatnot. But just to experience that and feel it, it's pretty intriguing, the different things that are out there for healing, whether it's spiritual, sexual, or health-wise.
There you go. Yeah, it's
also what you see. A great story is about a woman who believes that every time she goes to New York, she gets robbed, and every time she goes to New York, she gets robbed. Another woman believes that every time she goes to New York, she wins a lottery. Well, guess what? She goes to New York and she wins a lottery. Another woman believes that every time she goes to New York, she gets into new adventures. Guess what? She gets new adventures. It's not about the town and where you go and what time and when you go. It's about what you believe is going to happen in those circumstances, what you expect.
And I knew a really awesome guy named Brother Rankin, and we used to refer to him as the stropey-legged scallywag, but he was amazing as far as his intelligence and what he knew, and he would often say, you know, the mind is a powerful thing, and it's important to try and control your thoughts, because thoughts can become physical things, you know, like ailments or accidents or whatnot. It's important to control your thoughts, your mind waves, and your intentions, basically.
Not can, they are. There was actually a book in the 1920s called Thought Forms. And it was all about thought forms, how they become entities. You know, sometimes they manifest as circumstances, sometimes entities, somebody who's possessed or plagued by demons or ghosts. Well, you're kind of creating them and attracting them. They appear in many different forms, but they are thought forms. They come from you. And that is why we created religions and governments, to insulate us, because when you realize everything you think becomes real, that's a lot of responsibility to take on. There's an ancient writing that talks about in Atlantis, before the natural cataclysms came that sank the continent, there was a psychic illness. It talks about the whole society was telepathic. So imagine the impact of a psychic illness spreading through the population. And that was just it. They managed to manifest, instead of all of their communal hopes, they managed to manifest all of their collective fears. And that's what brought Atlantis down long before the waves consumed it. The waves were just the natural result of it. And if you look at where we find ourselves now with the natural catastrophes, heating up global conflicts, heating up tensions everywhere, it's not separate. I don't view it necessarily all as bad things. I view it as a natural side effect of also our abilities coming online, our energy awakening, both individually and collectively. And it's not so much that we're doomed, it's that we're quickly coming up on the time where we have the right and the honor and the privilege of making a choice. And I believe the fact that so many of us are coming online now is evidence that we're going to make the correct choice. We don't have to go through the doom and gloom. There are multiple timelines before this. We could if we wanted to, but we've done all that before, right? We've been through the flood, we've been through the cataclysms, we've been through the asteroid hitting the Earth. We could do it that way again, but we don't have to. It's as simple as realizing we have a choice, and our big collective choice will be the result of the little individual, seemingly unimportant choices that we're all making every day under the illusion of doing them independently. It's an illusion. The Buddhists call it Maya, the great illusion, and the illusion is the separation. Every little choice we make has a significance. We talk about the mandala effect, the butterfly effect. Every little choice we make has a significance. So you want to ensure that we have the good timeline, that we have an easy time of it, that we save the planet? It starts with the choices we make. It starts on an individual level, outer peace through inner peace.
When you were talking about fear, and fear is major negative energy, and a lot of people these days are living in fear, and a lot of people just want to stay in their little protective shells or bubbles and not let
It's become familiar. That's just it. It's become familiar. Why would anybody choose hurt? Well, of course we wouldn't, except it's become so familiar. And the opposite of the known is the unknown. And the unknown is what's truly scary. So you see, when you stay in pain, you're making a choice motivated by fear. Because the alternative is the unknown. That's fear in and of itself. People talk about the epic battle of good and evil, right? The apocalypse just means change. Here again, starting with the definition of words. Apocalypse means great change on every level. Paradigm shift is what it actually means. The Bible literally translates it as the battle of good and evil. I want to put it a different way. It's the balance of energies between fear and lack and love and abundance. We've been making a lot of choices by default from a place of fear. Even governments and militaries, if you look at the world stage, it's driven by fear and mistrust. But the opposite of it is love and abundance. We don't have to have wars over natural resources if we stop thinking of them as scarce and limited, and the same money we're putting into the military to protect our share could be put into scientific research so we can finally have, instantaneous healing and free energy, and all of these things are not impossible. Okay, but it's where we've been putting our energy is on fear and protection instead of love and abundance. That's the big shift that needs to happen, and that's what's symbolized by this battle of good versus evil. It's really fear and scarcity versus love and abundance. And the Cherokee actually have a story about this. You might have heard it, the black wolf and the white wolf, with the black wolf representing all the negative emotions like fear, doubt, jealousy. Doubt's a big part of it. Where does fear come from? Self-doubt, thinking, and limitation. And then the white wolf is all of the nobler emotions, love, abundance, caring, right? So which wolf is going to win?
Which one are you feeding?
Eat the most.
Yeah, yeah. The one you feed the most.
Mm-hmm.
We're the ones doing the feeding. You don't like your government? You can change your government too. You can petition them. You can run for office. There's nothing in this world that's not malleable. So let's step up and start making changes. And like Gandhi said, be the change. It starts within. This is why we always look externally. The hardest change is always with yourself. And even how our society has really become about like chasing the big, first we're going to avoid sex, but if we're going to have it, let's come as quickly as possible and get this shameful act over with. Tantra is about savoring the energy in between. Like a lot of people assume tantric practice is about avoiding orgasm. It's not about avoiding orgasm. It's about enjoying every step along the way to the orgasm as much as possible, and then enjoying the orgasm when you choose to have it to its fullest as well. It's presence versus avoidance. And you can see how it's, in a way, it's a microcosm of what's been happening in the world. Everything we complain about in the world is the result of avoidance versus presence. Letting other people handle it for us. You see? Presence versus avoidance. As above, so below. Tantra is an inner practice often reached through outer stimuli. And it's really a microcosm of what we see happening in the world at large.
And I'm just processing all that. And you had mentioned death as well. And a lot of people, when thinking of death or even hearing the word, there's fear related to that. But a lot of times when there's death, there's something new on the other side, something brighter and better to come. So the death of a new or an old society or whatnot begots a new society. Hopefully.
Well, fear of the
forward.
unknown again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fearing death, it's like fearing life.
And yet we know a lot of people have had ghost sightings, supernatural experiences. So it's kind of illogical to fear death or to think of it as an ending when we have evidence of existence beyond it.
Yes, and fear also arises because a lot of people, again, they still live in their mind. It's very important to understand that your mind will never stop thinking. I've tried it many times, and it works for a few minutes, yes, but it doesn't work for hours and hours. You can never possibly stop thinking. However, you can disconnect from your mind and stop trusting what it's telling you. And that's where the fear comes from. You may have those thoughts because, we're all channelers. We watch the news, and sometimes the thoughts from the news coming to us a few hours later, or something is going on and we're channeling it through us. So we cannot possibly control the thoughts that are coming through our mind, and as well fears. But we can control what we allow our heart to feel. So anytime the fear is coming through you, just realize it's not you. It's something coming through you. And like Osho said, you're like the sky and thoughts are like clouds. The thoughts are constantly passing by, but the sky is still there. And the way the sky feels, the way you feel, should not be affected by those thoughts that are passing by constantly and those fears.
So when you practice Tantra in your life, are there ways that you set up the environment to get the fullest experience? Like, do you listen to binaural beats or something along those lines? Or do you light up incense for, the sense of smell? What do you do to prepare for certain things?
All of it, because remember, arousal is about awakening the senses. So absolutely, candles, incense, the right music. Binaural beats work the best through headphones, not as well through loudspeakers. But you can do, there's something called isochronic tones. There's a lot. You go on YouTube and music for finish the thought, for studying, for healing, and like tons of stuff comes up, and it's composed according to certain frequencies that trigger certain parts of the brain. So there's a lot of things, not that binaural beats are necessarily bad, but they'll work the best through headphones. But there's a lot of comparable stuff. But absolutely, everything of every sense. Cook an amazing dinner. Have an amazing date together beforehand. Everything that sets the stage and helps create the mood, the more the merrier. Start out with meditation. Start out with eye gazing and breathing. Start out with light touch of the neck and shoulders everywhere. Anything and everything you can do to stimulate the senses in every way possible. The more the merrier.
Also, your house and where you live, it's your temple. So I don't think you should be using all those things only for tantric experiences. I think it should be your normal way of living. Like, for example, there was not a day of my life that I didn't turn on a candle or incense. It's a normal way of living because, we very much feel our environment. That's where we live. That's why Feng Shui is so successful, because our environment definitely affects how we feel and even our success in life. So I would create your home as a temple on an everyday basis. It's something that should always be in that beautiful state that encourages you to be.
Well, that's one of the tenets of Tantra, is that every moment and every act of your life, you're in ceremony, you're in prayer. It's not like you go to church to pray. Every moment of your life is prayer, is ceremony. And now, as I say that, I remember that's exactly what the medicine man said when I was visiting an Indian reservation. You're in ceremony every moment of your life. Ceremony is not something separate. It's not something you do, and it's not something separate from your daily activity. Washing the dishes, you can be blessing them for your next meal. Not can, should be.
And a lot of it has to do with intent. And you were saying through certain scriptures that it said that, heaven is on earth, heaven is here. And a lot of people I hear saying, hell's on earth. And I think it's all in what you make it, all in what your intentions are and what your perspective is. And some people just get into this cycle of negative thinking and everything goes wrong, nothing happens right for me. And for me, it's a vicious cycle, knowing people like this and trying to get them to think positively, or, sometimes you'll have to say to yourself positive things in order to put these things in action. And you can actually rewire your mind from the negative thinking to a more positive way of thinking and having these things happen in your life.
It's been scientifically proven. It's been studied many times. Harvard Medical School did a study with MRIs, and they showed that you grow new gray matter within 2 weeks of starting a regular meditation practice. When neuroplasticity is now widely accepted, pretty much as a given now, the circuits you use the most grow thicker. The circuits that are less often used deteriorate over time. So it works both ways. If you're somebody that tends to the negative, you can rewire yourself to be more positive. It takes practice. Here again, the word Tantra means practice. It means technique. The same can happen in reverse. If you allow yourself to keep defaulting to anxiety, to depression, it's going to become much easier over time to get there. The more you allow yourself to stay in a certain state or vibration, the easier it'll become for you to get triggered and to land right back in that vibration. So you literally have to retrain yourself, and maybe a little bit at first consciously as a practice. But you have to have faith that 2 weeks later, it's not going to... 2 weeks, we've measured how long it takes. 2 weeks later, it's not going to be as hard as it is now. It's not going to take as much effort. 2 weeks after that, it's going to be even more natural. 2 weeks after that, you're not even going to have to think about it. That's going to become your new normal, even if on day 1, 2, or 3 it's not. If it takes some effort. Most people feel the effort of the first day and they give up. They fail to realize it's going to get easier over time as it becomes your new normal. And then you're going to springboard from there. It's not just about, for some people it's about healing, okay? If you think of 0 as being normal, so for some people it's healing. You start out at some negative number and you're trying to get up to 0. But you don't have to stop at 0. You can move on into positive territory as well. Keep going. And this is where we get into self-development and spiritual practice. You keep going. You keep going. Why stop at healthy? Let's go for superhuman. Why stop at superhuman? Let's go for godlike. This is our birthright. We live in the default because we've accepted the default as our default. We haven't tried to push the envelope. Amazing things start to happen when we push that envelope. And that's the heaven on earth that's referred to in the old days.
So there are also things that you use as far as, of course, be a clean person, and like you said, brush your teeth every day, certain practices like that, but ointments or anything that you use to have peace or calmness or focus.
Yes, absolutely. And interesting that you mentioned ointments, in particular, essential oils. We know that sound is a frequency. What separates a C note from an A note is its frequency. We know the difference between red and blue is frequency of light. All of our senses interpret frequency as some kind of data. So smell is a frequency. Absolutely. It's another way of tuning the body, right? Mary is described in the Bible as anointing the feet of Jesus. it's another way to shift the frequency. All of this is about frequency. I want to come back to what Skywatcher said earlier on. They mentioned that after their, and I don't know if you're a man or a woman, so I'll say they to be on the safe side. They mentioned that after their Kundalini awakening, they were one with everything. They could hear thoughts, they could see events before they happened. Yes, because your frequency has shifted. It's a lot like when you go up the chakras, it's a lot like tuning the radio of a dial. So you receive more signals. Just like some people can hear a dog whistle and some can't. Some people can see energy and auras and some can't. But all have the capability to, once you shift your frequency to include that as part of your bandwidth. And the same can be said of time. You know, when somebody gets premonitions of the future or can sense their own or somebody else's past lives, it's just broadening the spectrum of time you're able to perceive. We think that we can only experience one moment at a time because by default, that's what we've gotten used to experiencing. But somebody who has a premonition of the future or a sense of their past lives, that's all they're doing is they're taking the blinders off. They're widening what they're able to perceive, nothing more.
So, do you guys believe in ghosts? I know you had talked about reincarnation. If you have had any experiences with ghosts or spirits, what do you think the reason is that they're here instead of reincarnating?
Well, ghosts versus reincarnation, kind of two separate things. Here again, our ego is very localized in our body. Our definition of me is one thing, one entity, one person. Ghosts are the energetic remnant of somebody that either used to exist in this plane or an entity from another dimension projecting part of itself into this plane, but it's not fully here. It's slightly out of phase. Here you're dealing with a fifth dimensional. Three dimensionals is backwards, forwards, up, down. Fourth dimensional is time, backwards and forwards through time, though really, again, it's awareness. It's just expanding what your definition of present is. Fifth dimensional, once you understand time, fifth dimensional travel is phasing. Things can be in phase or out of phase with each other. So what you would describe as a ghost, I would describe as an entity either from another dimension or somebody from this dimension who's moved on, partially in phase with our reality and part of out of phase with it. So that would be a ghost. Reincarnation is now your body, sorry to say, but your body's going to die. Even the technologists acknowledge that the body's going to die. We can keep getting better at replacing synthetic parts, but ultimately it's going to be your consciousness downloaded into an android, into a VR environment. That's how the technocrats view immortality. But spiritually, we've already known that the body dies, but you are not the body. And this is where the first step to understanding spirituality is separating from your ego, from your attachment to this body. A spirit can reincarnate in a different body and in multiple bodies at the same time that it can leave an energetic imprint as a ghost here as it's passing. Neither one is mutually exclusive, because that's exactly it. When you're no longer bound to a body or an ego, you're no longer bound to one point of space-time. You can go on to your next reincarnation and leave a remnant as a ghost at the same time. People ask me, do I believe in past lives? I do. I just have issue with the word past. Mine aren't over. I'm still, a fragment of me is still experiencing them, downloading data to this current fragment of me. You see what I mean? It's all difficult to understand when you look at it from a localized point of view. But all of these concepts become not mutually exclusive when you stop thinking of yourself as one dot in space-time, one point. Our consciousness is not localized. And once you start to think from a non-localized point of view, everything the mystics have been saying all along makes much more sense because you don't see the conflict in it. There's no longer the illusion of duality. All of these apparent conflicts come from the misperception that we are one point in space-time, that we are localized. We are temporarily localized within a body.
I like to say that we're all spiritual beings having a human experience, and I think there's certain things that we have to learn in life, and sometimes it takes repeated tries to learn these certain things. I don't think we'll know everything, but
boom, you said it. You summed it up really well. That's exactly it. Where we often stop and sell ourselves short is we don't follow that rabbit hole to realize the full implications of that statement. Did you hear Siri?
Yeah, what'd she
That
say?
was Siri. Siri's just switched on and said, I don't know how to respond to that.
Oh, wow.
We've just imploded the AI. We gave it one it couldn't
Oh, my.
comprehend.
She was listening the whole time.
I guess.
AI really scares me. Does that freak you out at all when things like that happen?
No, again, it's what you put your attention in. Because the more you put attention into it, the more it will happen to you. Because again, reality, it's still an illusion. And it's your choice. You want to have a pleasant illusion or unpleasant illusion. I do believe that all those things are happening because people put too much attention into it. If we stop putting attention into it, it will disappear on its own because everything intensifies when we put our energy into it.
The AI could end up being some cold technological thing that consumes us and overtakes us, or it could finally be exactly what links us to this Akashic, limitless consciousness that we've been trying to connect to. She's right. It's here again. The choice is ours.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I don't use it, but it has popped up before for no apparent reason. One time was going on to a paranormal investigation, and it's like you said, she's listening. And she said the only thing to fear is fear itself. So it was really funny how it was kind of relevant to the discussion and what we were about to expose ourselves to. One other time she came on and it blew my mind. She said, "Did you summon me?" And I was like, "No, no, go away."
Wow.
But,
Wow.
you know, they are listening, and I think it's perhaps they're trying to learn from us.
Is it a software tool? Is it clever programming? Is it divine intervention? All of the above. You know, AI, the A in the AI is artificial, but is it artificial? We're creating it, and aren't we a product of nature ourselves? Maybe that's the natural step evolution's supposed to take. We don't know. You can view everything from a place of fear and scarcity or a place of love and abundance.
And you can transform others by seeing them differently. So if
that's a biggie.
If something like this happens, see, I was laughing about, so I didn't put so much fear into it. That is why it's going to be transformed. It's not going to interfere with my life. But the ones who start putting attention into it, like I know a person, she's scared of everything. She said, "Oh, this is like the government sending me with these letters and they're like already walking after me." I'm like, and literally she keeps attracting people who does it to her because she so believes in it. Because again, we create our reality. So just realize where you put your attention towards.
Whereas I met a CIA agent. I mean, literally, she walked up to me. I realized after the fact she was CIA. She introduced herself as a linguist. But she said, "You know, I just heard something in my head that I heard you say out loud 2 seconds later. If you have a few minutes and are open to it, I want to try a few tests because I think I'm picking up on your thoughts." You know, that's not how most people imagine an encounter with a federal agent, right? But that was my encounter with a federal agent. It was curiosity. It really is what we make it. You touched on something that's so important. And tying it back to where we started, this being Valentine's weekend, how we see ourselves is super important, and how we see the other person or people in our lives is so important. If you're frustrated with where you're at in life, stop looking in the mirror and calling yourself a loser. Look in the mirror, and how many of you actually do this? Don't just think, yeah, that would be nice. Do it tomorrow morning and do it every day for 21 days and see what happens. Look at yourself in the mirror and feel proud of yourself. See a winner. See a champion who succeeds at everything they try. Do that as a deliberate practice every day. And if you have someone in your life, well, my relationship sucks. I think I'm going to break up with this person. Maybe it's because every time you see them, you see the bad in them, the flaws in them. Try every time you see them, giving them a compliment and really meaning it. I'm not talking about lying. Find something good about that person. If there's really nothing good, then leave. Why are you there? Okay? But usually you can find something. Every time you see that person, compliment them and see what happens after a few weeks. Maybe they'll start becoming more like the kind of person you want to be dating. So how you treat others, your expectation of what you'll get out of them, and I'm going to extend this to include our governments and our churches and our AIs, everything. What you expect to get from people very often is what you're going to get from them. So start expecting more. It's about you. Start opening yourself up to the possibility of newer and better experiences.
Well, we are nearing the end of our time, and I want our listeners to be able to follow you guys and, perhaps take part in your different lectures or learning from you. How do they find you and get in contact with you?
Oh, we'd love that. Please stay in touch. We believe everything happens for a reason. So if you're hearing this podcast now or after the fact, it's for a reason. The company we started together is called Apex Life Mastery, so you can search for that on YouTube, on Facebook. If you go to our website, apexlifemastery.com, then I want to say please put /paradox after it, because that's a special landing page we made just for your listeners. So once this goes up, we'll have a link to the recording of the show for you right there from the page. You can sign up from our mailing list. So whenever we offer anything, we like listeners like you to be the first to take advantage of it, because when we put a new course online and when we put our book out, we want people like you to be the first ones reading it. Of course, because we want good reviews. We want people who are going to understand the subject matter. Better reviews help us get it in the hands of more people. So we would rather the first people to buy the book be your listeners. Right now, the book is listed on Amazon for $8.88. If you pre-order it, it'll drop to 99 cents on the day it goes live. Your listeners will get a link to that 99-cent offer. When we offer our course, we've already talked about it, we're going to give it for half price to your listeners, because we want people that have that interest already that were drawn there originally. So just put /paradox, apexlifemastery.com/paradox, and that'll plug you in, so you'll always hear about stuff first and we'll always get a better price than we offer to the general public.
That is awesome. I'm going to have to check that out for sure. 99 cents?
When the book goes live, the price will drop. Don't tell anyone, to 99 cents. Yeah, the people that pre-order it requires you to put a price in, so $8.88 will be the retail price. But the day before it goes live, it's going to drop to 99 cents. You guys will get it for that price.
Well, I just want to thank you guys so much again for being my guests, Oxana and Andrei. It's been amazing learning these different things from you. But thank you again for joining us tonight and opening our minds, broadening our horizons, and for being on Late Night in the Rockies.
Thank you for doing this show, Tessa. Thank you for opening the minds, and thank you to everybody who's tuning in. Thank you for taking that first step and following that hunch of intuition.
You guys are amazing, and thank you so much for what you're doing and doing your large part in trying to change the world that we are in today.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure sharing our ideas with you and your show.
It's an honor, truly.
It's an honor.
And thank you to all of our friends on We Are Paradox Media's Facebook, Spreaker, Twitter, Periscope, iHeartRadio, and wherever else you may be listening beyond the Omniverse tonight. I had a wonderful time this evening, and I can't wait to do it again next weekend, where on Saturday we have Psychic Saturday with Psychic Chris Garcia, and then on Sunday we are joined by Richard Case, the Ghost Challenger, and he's from the UK, a very amazing person. So you guys don't forget, we are all in this together. Together we can make the world a little better. And together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there is no us. If you would like to join us on the Skype after party, look us up on Skype. Contact request me under tessa.n.thomas30, or give us a jingle at 1970-335-9596. We'll get you in there eventually. And hey, don't forget, on the weekdays we got Coffee and a Chat with Sleepy Dave. And I want to thank our sponsors, Mr. Kevin McDougall, Del Elson, Jim Morris, and Mia Savage. And of course, our musical host, Mr. Quest. Until next time, nighty-night, love and light. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And don't work too hard this week. And I will see you back here, same time, same place.